Tu BiShvat Sameach to everyone. On behalf of World Mizrachi, we want to thank Jamie for re-inviting us into your beautiful and glorious kitchen to enhance our celebration of Tu BiShvat. Tonight is actually Rosh Chodesh Shvat, so Chodesh Tov, Jamie.
Chodesh Tov. Oh.
It's wonderful to be here. We're now going to be a little socially distant.
I'm just going to say hi, everyone, and Chodesh Tov, and it's so amazing to see you. I love getting together like this. We have to make a habit of it.
Yes, every Bezrat Hashem, we hope, as we approach each one of the Chagim, to combine Kemach and Torah, the food being infused with Divrei Torah, to better understand what in fact we're celebrating and how through the foods, and particularly this holiday of Tu BiShvat, through the fruit of Eretz Yisrael, to enhance our appreciation of what it means to be living in Eretz Yisrael, especially during these challenging times.
Absolutely. You know, you can bring meaning to food and specifically the holidays and the customs that we're using this food to celebrate with any time of year, but this is like, I feel like this is our holiday, Rebbitzin, you know, because every single thing has so much meaning here. I don't know if you'll find meaning in the onion.
Definitely. I heard this from Rebbitzin, Henny Machlis, Zachrona Levracha.
Oh, wow. My daughter's best friends with her granddaughter.
Beautiful.
Yes.
What a schos. Every time she would chop her onions and start crying, she would say, Al Churban Beis HaMikdash.
Wow.
I'm crying for the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash.
So, because I was so nervous if I was going to start crying on camera, I was going to say, these are happy tears. I'm happy you're here. I'm happy it's Tu BiShvat.
Beautiful. That's right. And you know, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, this actually is a day to begin celebrating because according to Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Beit Shammai says that today is really the Rosh Hashanah Li'ilanot, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the beginning of the month, just as we find Rosh Hashanah Lashana and the Rosh Hashanah Limlachim on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But we pass them like Beit Hillel. We're going to wait 15 days from now, and then we're really going to celebrate. And this is perfect timing then to train all of us, prepare us all for a delicious, a spiritually uplifting culinary Tu BiShvat, as it leads us also into Shabbat Shira this year, as we celebrate really the song of Eretz Yisrael, the song of Devorah HaNeviah, who symbolizes the honey. She's the Devorah, the story of Yael. Right? Exactly, beautiful. The honey, the sweetness, and Yael, who brings Sisra, the chalav. So it also brings us back to the dvash and chalav of Eretz Yisrael.
Wow, I love it. So you were saying about this is like a new year for the trees, but I've also heard growing up that it's the Yom Holedet, the birthday for the trees. So which is it?
So it actually is the day that we celebrate their birthday. So that's why it's calculated as a new year. A new year for, let's say, the mitzvah d'oraita of Orla, that we have to count 3 years before we can enjoy the fruits of a tree. So if I plant a tree a week before Tu BiShvat, by Tu BiShvat, it's already a year old, and it's approaching its second year.
It's the second year, right.
And the same with the blossoming of the fruit trees.
I'm going to hand this to my assistant here so she can just have our cutting board and everything ready after. We're sauteing the onions while you were saying. Okay, so it's in its second year.
Smells delicious.
I always say, so there's a few things that can happen in a kitchen. When you're trying to sell a house, or you just want to make the house feel homey, they used to always tell you, like, make an apple pie, right? So that's a lot of work, but I do agree that that's one of the most amazing scents that could come out of a kitchen. But sauteing onions, I feel like is right up there. So if you're like a savory person also, like, oh, the smell. Yeah, I just love it.
And especially today, I think we appreciate the sense of smell.
Yes,
so
and this
much.
is coming right, totally. I gave something to my daughter the other day. She's like, I can't smell it. I was like, oh, what do you mean you can't smell it? But she was okay, thank God.
Okay, Jamie, I'm watching you do something as simple as sauteing onions, and I see you added salt and pepper.
And of course we're sauteing in olive oil. Part of the of Tu BiShvat to have olives everywhere. So the idea here is you always want to season as you go. Many people make this mistake, is they'll season toward the end, you know, for flavor taste. If you season as you go, you create layers of flavor. I use kosher salt to bring out the natural flavor, not impart a salty taste, but to bring out the natural flavors of the onions. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people, when they're caramelizing onions, they add a little sugar. No need. If you let them go and you have a little patience, their natural sugars will come out, and the salt actually does better for them than the sugar.
Excellent. So Jamie, can you remind us, what are we making today for Shabbos?
Today what we're making. Look how we're chopping an onion. That's it. I hope you guys had a great day. No, we are preparing for Shabbat here for Shabbos, and we decided to, this was actually your idea. We have lots of different recipes with the 7 species, and you chose something that would be not just great for Tu BiShvat, but be great for the upcoming Shabbat. And so we are doing a 7 species harvest chicken, and we are doing a 7 species kugel. And we're doing 7 species salad. So this is correct. And then, if we had more time, maybe you could come back tomorrow. We could do a challah, we could do a soup, we could do a dessert, But you have a way busier schedule than even me, by the way. So Hashem should just help you. Okay, I'm putting in here. I debuted it here first last time. This is my own spice line, and this is Hawaiish for coffee. Hawaiish is a Yemenite spice mix, and it comes savory. This is the savory version you put in soups and stews. And typically the Hawaiish for coffee goes in coffee and baked goods and desserts. But any time that you would be putting cinnamon or ginger, this is cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and cloves. And you can smell this, right?
Wow, wait, I should really say a bracha.
Amen. It's right. So this recipe originally called for cinnamon and ginger, and I'm like, I'm just putting in my new Hawaii. You can get it on Amazon, but it's going to bring so much interest. But if you just have cinnamon or ginger, that can work as well. So no pressure, no stress. So we have this going on here. You want to warm and toast the spices a little bit. It's already just delicious. I'm going to lower this just a tiny bit. We're going to be patient as this caramelizes. It needs a little bit more oil. I'm very liberal with the oil. And then we're going to get to the chicken, okay? So hang on one second here. I'm going to let this go. And our chicken, we're going to do 2 things with it. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to just toss it with a little bit of flour. This is not a necessary step. You could skip it, but it's going to, when we're going to go ahead and brown it in the pan, it's going to give it just a little bit more browning and just a little bit more of that crispy coated. It dries it up a bit. Sautéing actually means dancing and jumping around in the pan, and that's what you want. You want the oil to be hot. You want your vegetables or chicken, whatever you are whatever you want to sauté to be just kind of moving around, like you hear that sizzle. So that's the thing. And you also want whatever you're using to be dry. When you have something dry, it's going to really get that gorgeous browning. So just a half a cup of flour. So we have like a little wheat.
We're already getting into exactly our Sheva Minim right now. We have our wheat, the first one, chita. Excellent.
Yeah, and we're just tossing that up, and then we're going to start to just lightly, and then we're going to start to just place this. I'm going to go skin side down to start here. This adds an extra layer of flavor when you take a moment to brown, and we're going to actually make this entire chicken on the stovetop, but if you're just racing and going quickly and you don't have a lot of time, you could just put this in the oven classically like you would and just bake it like 350, roasted 350, 375, and that could work as well.
Okay, I think I'm going to try that method.
Yeah, no problem. No judgment, no problem. You don't expect me to know all the Torah, that's why you're here, and I don't expect you to do all the extra steps. We make a good team, Rebbitzin.
Yes.
Okay, great. Please, I'm moving my onions a little to the side. And then we've got some time here while this is browning. Excellent.
So can we talk about some of the Sheva Minim?
Yes.
And how often do you find a Tanakh in your kitchen?
All the time, by the way. A siddur I do. Tanakh, no, but the siddur has found its way into the kitchen many times.
So we have right in front of us, which Be'ezrat Hashem will soon place on Jamie's chicken, the Sheva Minim, and looking around here, I'm already anticipating our future recipes.
Yes.
And this is really the basis of the fruit of Eretz Yisrael that Moshe Rabbeinu in his mitzvah speech tells Bnei Yisrael in Sefer Dvarim, Perek Chet, Pasuk Chet. I'm going to bring you, Hashem's going to bring you, El Eretz Tova, Eretz Nachalei Mayim, Ayanot, Utohomot, Yotzim Babekar Ubahar, Eretz Chita Usaura, Vegefen, Uteina Verimon, Eretz Shemen Udvash. This is where we find the Sheva Minim. And what's interesting about each one of these fruit is that Eretz Yisrael is blessed particularly with fruit, not necessarily with vegetables. Vegetables, if you remember from the story of the Meraglim, Am Yisrael want to go back to Mitzrayim for the kishuim, the avatichim, the shumim, for all the garlic and the onions. So this we can get anywhere. This, though, is the bracha of Eretz Yisrael.
So it's so funny because in modern day Israel, people are always talking about our cucumbers and our tomatoes.
As those
But
are
you're
also
saying
great.
it's really the fruit.
It's really the fruit because the
Wow.
fruit grow on trees, which is what we're celebrating,
Right.
Rosh Hashanah Ilanot. And it's the fruit trees that are dependent on the rains from Shamayim. So when we think about these fruit, we think about our special connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as
Right.
opposed to the vegetables that really grow on their own. Here we recognize how dependent we are.
So that's so interesting also, just because when people think, if they haven't been to Israel in a while, or just the association, it's like in the middle of the Middle East, in the middle of a desert. So to think about it as a place with trees and trees that are bearing such fruit, is that a special blessing to us in this region, or?
That's beautiful that you should say that. Because,
We never plan this, by the way.
right? Because Chazal teach us, in the Midrash, they say that if you come to Eretz Yisrael and it's a time of plentiful fruits, then you know that it's a time before Mashiach.
Wow.
So what do you think?
We're here. We are here. We're just talking about this, by the way. We are on so many levels. We are here.
Right? Was it difficult for you to find any of these fruit here? I heard you went to Machane Yehuda, you went
so
shopping.
we have a mini Machane Yehuda right here in our backyard, in our Merkaz, our center of our city, our town, or we're not a village, not a city. We're somewhere between. I don't know. My friend who lives in the big city was like, Beit Shemesh is a city? I'm like, we are a city.
Yes.
So anyways, we have a mini Machane Yehuda here, and we just go and we pick up all of our dried fruits. And I'm telling you, we tested everything before. The grapes are unbelievable. The rimanim are like bursting jewels. The dried fruits are so, how it could be like dry yet plump at the same time, right? Because like too dry is not good. So, and all this right here in our backyard.
And it's amazing that even now, right, we're Shvat time, and it's really the end of the harvesting post-Sukkot, and we can still find the fruits on the trees.
Yeah.
And I'm also still eating fresh figs, which is such a bracha.
We have the most firm, beautiful fruit. Wait till you see them. I know.
And remarkable, as we find in Sefer Melachim, what is the ideal state of Am Yisrael described during the time of Shlomo HaMelech? Ish tachat gafno v'tachat te'enato. Everyone under his vine and everyone under his fig tree. And that's a symbol of serenity, of bracha, of geula. So
And I love figs, so that would really be a moment for me. I have to tell that to my husband, because we're going to get him on the fig train.
Exactly, and it reminds us.
Why is that the symbol of that serenity? Like, why the fig?
Because if you think about it, especially the geffen and the fig, they're so sweet, right? We don't really need them for...
Nature's candy, Hashem's candy.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
We don't really need them for daily nourishment. They symbolize almost the luxuries of life. And that's exactly it, where we don't just have the staples, the wheat and the barley, and even some of the basic fruit. We have the luxuries. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just blessing us with his bounty, which is what we have an opportunity to celebrate in Eretz Yisrael, which is why I think that particularly now, returning to Eretz Yisrael, Tu BiShvat, which was always celebrated much more in a halachic manner.
Yes.
And knowing when to count the years of Orla, the beginnings of the blossoming of the fruit for the sake of Maser Shani, Maser Ani, that now people realize we're also celebrating being here in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
So it was really first the Kabbalists that came to Tzvat in Eretz Yisrael and said, wait a second, the Rizal said we should be celebrating these Ta'amei HaGeula and have a Seder Tu BiShvat, as many of you saw Rav Doron's family celebrating together.
I was saying, I never grew up like that, so it's so interesting. I remember growing up and coming up from school, I went to like a Salmon Schechter type day school, they would send you with Buxer, like that dried carob. So please, one, tell me why, and two is, when did this, it was interesting to me to know that the Seder actually comes from the Kabbalists from Tzvat, because I thought it's a much more modern day, custom.
Isn't that something? So when it was originally the Kabbalists from Tzvat, and because today, Baruch Hashem, with Kibbutz Galiyot, as we spoke last time also, bringing all the different fruits and the recipes and the culture. So now, even if you're very Lithuanian and Ashkenazi, you've accepted this as well. As a matter of fact, this is what's so fascinating. In the Shulchan Aruch, in the earlier halachic sources, we find Tu BiShvat is a day that we don't say Tachanon and no Nefilat Apayim. And the first time that we hear about this idea of celebrating the fruits on Tu BiShvat is mentioned in a Sefer Tikkun Yisachar by Rabbi Yisachar ben Mordechai, Ben Susano, who says, I see the Ashkenazim. Isn't that interesting? That it's quoted in a Sephardi Sefer. The Ashkenazim are marbe. They eat a lot of the fruit of Eretz Yisrael on this day. They celebrate the fruit trees. So we have the Kabbalists after. This is the Tikkun Yisachar in the 16th century. Then the Kabbalists in the 17th century. Then in the 19th century with the Hityashvut, the Aliyah Aleph.
I'm reading a book about that now. Wow.
Amazing. Then they come and say, we should be celebrating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael. We finally get to enjoy this. That it's not about the potato anymore. And it's
my gosh. That was Hanukkah, the potato lock, right?
And now we're going to celebrate the fruits that are indigenous to Eretz Yisrael, that remind us of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's interesting that you should mention the charuv, the carob.
Where did that come from? So
it's not one of the Shevaminu.
No, I don't have it in any of my recipes.
So that comes from a Gemara in Masechet Tanit, where we hear about Choni Hamagel, who lives here in Eretz Yisrael in the 1st century CE, and there isn't rain in Eretz Yisrael. And the Beit Din calls upon him. He is known as Ni'ish Ma'aseh. He has a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he draws his circle. And he says, Hashem, I'm not moving until you bring rain to Bnei Yisrael. And sure enough, again, at first there are little droplets of rain and then pouring rain and beautiful rain. They go to Har HaBayit. He says, enough of the rain. And Choni basically has this relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shimon ben Shetach even says, Ilmalei Choni ata hayiti gozrani alecha nidui. That you can't just do this and have a relationship with God where you turn to Hashem with a tefillah and you expect an answer right away, as we know all too well today. He says there is a halachic process of tefillah, ta'anit, we fast, we daven. And the next story tells us a little bit more about Choni, that he's walking one day and he sees a man planting a carob tree. And what is a charuv? As a matter of fact, you talked about the dried buxer that we actually generally import from Turkey today. But it does grow in Eretz Yisrael, fresh and delicious, especially in the northern parts of Eretz Yisrael. And he sees a man planting a carob tree, and he says, how long does it take for the carob tree to bear fruit? And the man says 70 years. So the truth is, it takes closer to 13 years, but he's making a point over here. Namely, he says, I don't understand the pasuk, Shir HaMa'alot V'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kachomim. I don't understand why we're all so excited. We're like dreamers that it took 70 years for us to come back between the time of the first Beis HaMikdash and the second Beis HaMikdash. So 70 years is a long time. And why would anyone want to plant something that they're not going to bear and enjoy the fruit of for another 70 years? And the man said, well, when I came into this world, I was able to enjoy the fruit of my father and grandfather. So Choni goes to sleep. He's passive for 70 years. He wakes up and he sees the carob tree blossom.
Is that where the Rip Van Winkle?
I always say that.
I was just saying that it must have come from that.
100%. Again, that based on the Gemara and Tanit. And he says to the man, are you the one who planted? He said, no, I'm his grandson. And Choni realizes that he sleeps. He's expecting everything to happen right away. Which I think sometimes we feel today as well, especially with Corona. Okay, the vaccine, that's it. Everything is going to work. And we have to realize it's a process.
Everything. It's the immediate gratification generation.
Exactly. So what is a charuv? It's not just something that takes a while, that takes a process. It comes from the word chorban. So we plan from destruction, and we hope that Ezrat Hashem to bear the fruit.
Amen.
So particularly coming back after years of galut, years of exile, we eat the charuv as a sign, reminding us of that story, reminding us it may take 70 years. It may be a process. This time it took 2,000 years. But if we plant and we work and we appreciate Eretz Yisrael, then the Ezrat Hashem, we're going to see the fruit that we can harvest. So when you bite into that buxer, you realize
it is a little bit hard and a little bright, but
it's hard work, but you get to enjoy at the end.
So we've added here the chicken stock to this. That is so beautiful. You said, and the wine. So the wine has significance.
The wine of Eretz Yisrael and white wine.
Yes, I didn't even know about the white wine as I'm adding my rimon juice, my pomegranate juice.
So the Kabbalists say when you have a Seder, you're supposed to track the different seasons that we celebrate. So you start with the white. You start with, and then you add a little bit of red, again, the fall colors, and then you're going to bring in the winter, and ultimately, again, the spring and the summer, the more color that you add. So we just added.
I didn't know it.
I was
white. I didn't even plan the white wine, and then we did the broth. We added to this pomegranate juice. Rimonim is one of. And I'm adding here, these dates have been split and pitted. These are dry dates. And what they're going to do is they're already so plump and fantastic. But as they cook here and absorb all of the flavors, they will become more flavorful and almost like rehydrating a little bit. So these are going to be delicious. And they add like such a caramelly sweet note. So, and I think, when we spoke about this before many times when we speak about Eretz Chalav Udvash, the Dvash is date honey.
That's right. Yeah. It's the silan.
Yeah.
And even though Rabbi Akiva says maybe it's referring to the bee honey, we know that there were beehives during the time of David HaMelech, but thereafter, again, during the time of the Gemara already, it was all silan, all from the tamarim.
You can smell this through the mask.
100%.
This is so unbelievable. It's like so many layers of flavor. And we went from the sauteing onion to the cardamom, to the ginger, to the cloves, and to the cinnamon. And then we have the chicken sauteing. And now we've got the dates and the wine and the pomegranate juice. Here we're adding the next one, figs.
It really is bringing the seasons, the process, the planting. Yes. So even though we're not planting the fruit, we get to enjoy it in stages.
And this is called like a harvest chicken, and you feel that very much so, right? The seventh. And then on top, this is optional. You can place nuts, you can do them. I like to, I can even put them in here while it's cooking. You could do them after. But the almonds, shkedim. Didn't plan it.
Why you didn't plan it?
I planned it when this recipe was developed years ago, but I totally forgot it. And so when I was counting the 7, I'm like, okay, I have all 7, and I totally forgot the shkedi apoachat,
This is the season, and even though it's not one of the Shavaminim, we celebrate the beginning of the blossoming, and that's why I loved how you call this your harvest chicken, where we're celebrating the beginning of the pricha, everything that we worked for, and sometimes we look at our hard work and we look at the trees, and during the winter months everything looks bare, but really there's a process taking place that we can see, just as we say today. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows this is a process. We can't really figure this out, and come the shkedim, right, the Eitz HaShaked. It's only a modern terminology that we call it the shkediya. In Tanakh, it's the Eitz HaShaked that we find Aharon's staff blossoms with the almonds. Wow. And Yirmiyahu was asked, Ma ata ro'eh? Yirmiyahu, what do you see? Again, what's going to come from all the actions of Bnei Yisrael? And he's able to say, Makel shaked ani ro'eh. He understands even, it may not be an almond branch, even the staff is of an almond grain, because almond really is the first one. And he realizes whatever's going to come, it's going to come faster than we think. Right. And in the time of Yirmiyahu, he begins in Perek Aleph, Hashem says, yes, shoked ani al dvari lasoto. I'm going to bring the punishment very quickly. But then we fast forward to the end of Yirmiyahu, and there Hashem says, just as I brought the punishment quickly, I'm going to bring the geula, shakadati. I'm going to bring the geula like a shaked as well. Beautiful. So while this sautés and the process,
and the wine just hit me. I don't know, different. It depends as it's wafting, and if we have the window open, the door open, so it goes this way and goes that way, and you get some of that cardamom and ginger, like I said. Then you get some of that sweetness, that caramelly sweetness from the dates, and then boom, I just got the wine, and I love it.
And I love the colors.
Yeah,
the earth colors.
It's so harvesty. It's so all the neutrals and the beiges. It's just fantastic and very sort of rich in color and flavor as well. So we're going to cover this. I'm going to let it simmer for about 30 to 40 minutes until the chicken is cooked through. Or like I said, you could skip the whole browning part, just put everything in the oven, covered at 350 degrees, 375 Fahrenheit, until the chicken is cooked through, 40, 45 minutes to an hour. What size of your chicken?
Enjoy the fragrances in the meantime.
Beyond.
I'm going to bring it in the order of the Shabaminim.
I'm so excited.
You're going to tell us what we're looking at each time.
Okay, I don't know them all in Hebrew. Chita, wheat.
This is our wheat, excellent.
Raisins, which are shriveled grapes. Anavim.
So, eretz chita, saura, gefen.
Gefen. Figs.
Te'ina. Beautiful.
Rimonim, pomegranates. Zaitim, olives. I feel like I'm back like an Ulpan or something. This is the Ulpan for the cookbook authors. Tamarim, dates.
Excellent. So, Jamie, now that we have our main dish for our Shabbat meal, so it's time for
the sides, which is the 7-species kugel. This is actually a riff on that classic Ashkenazi, like sweet noodle, fruit and noodle kugel, you know, like a sweet cheese noodle kugel, which I happen to love. And it's one of those things you love or you hate, kind of like caviar.
I was brought up on this.
Okay, fine, good. So we're going to start with our eggs here in the bowl. I'm just going to give them a light whisk. Is there anything to say about the eggs or no?
Eggs, tarnagol, pirya, virivya, they're bracha of growth, and definitely in these parshiot of Shmot, of Am Yisrael growing. So beautiful.
Just a light whisk. We just, it was to 1 pound of noodles, you'll need 6 eggs. Okay, so here are those, I just want to put my gloves on. Here are those, the Israeli version of that like curly egg wide noodle, but you know, they're wide, yes, egg, yes. Not as curly as I would love and that I grew up with, you know, some of those ones that just like wavy, I love those, but anything will work. And really you could use just even spaghetti in a pinch, I've done that. But you're looking for a wide noodle, linguine if you have, something like that. And so this is gonna go in here.
I can even picture the Ozen bag.
Yes, correct. So this is going in, and bring my trusty assistant, she'll take this.
So we have more of a mezonot, which is beautiful.
Yes. Okay, this is going to be saved for the topping. So now we're going to go in with all of our shavminim. So our raisins, which are like the grape.
Our geffen.
Correct. A little bit over here. And we're going to do figs. Te'ena, right? Yeah. I always get that confused with the tamarim, but te'ena.
Right, the sweetness, the serenity. Yes. And what's amazing is that you already used the wine and now you're using the dry raisin. And I see that you also have fresh grapes here.
We are Yotzei Olshis. We are trying to just, yes, correct.
And Chazal say something beautiful about the grape. They say in Masechet Brachot that maybe this should be the central bracha because Ishtane Liluye, that at every stage, the grape keeps getting better, right? It blossoms on so many different stages, and then you have the grape. And then just when you think, that's it, I can eat the grape, you can actually have raisins. Right. And then, no, there's also wine. And wine gets better with time, so much so that there's a separate bracha when you have aged wine, when you have a better wine of Hatov HaMitiv.
I love
So we have all different stages connected together.
I'm just starting to mix a little bit with my hands. Here, now, we're doing a savory note here. The olives are fantastic in this, okay? And that is also one of our shavaminim, zaitim. I feel like I'm, like I said, in a cookbook ulpan, you know, for the cookbook authors here. Tamarim, this is our dates.
Tzadik hatamar yifrach.
Yes.
Really blossoming, and Chazal say that every part of the tamar is used, right? From the fruit to the bark to using the lulav.
Yes.
So we should maximize every talent that Hashem gives us, Jamie.
I love that.
And I love watching you just putting this all together so seamlessly.
Now we're going to add some beautiful pop of color. These pomegranates, Rimanim, they're like bursting jewels in your mouth, okay? Everything with them.
Are there 613?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, you knew it. Come on. Rabbitson, why you even asking? No. So this is going in here, and now we're going to just sort of bring it all together. Just add a little bit more just oomph to it in body. We're adding a little bit of non-dairy because we're serving this for Shabbat, right? So otherwise,
with our chicken.
Correct. So with that classic sweet cheese noodle kugel, you usually get like a cottage cheese in here, but here we're just going with like a non-dairy. This is a soy yogurt in here, which is fantastic. I love a little bit of that tartness to just balance. There's so much sweetness in the dried fruits, and so this will do just that, balance it out. And then you want sort of like a non-dairy milk, coconut milk, almond milk.
Oh,
yes,
that's excellent. Wow, so we even have our Tu BiShvat milk here.
Yes.
The real chalav and dvash of Eretz Yisrael. And it's a machloket. Does chalav mean the conventional milk coming from the flock and the cows, or maybe, and as we find Rabbi Yishmael says, no, it comes from the fruit themselves, that the fruit are so lush that the sap and the juices of the fruit are considered the chalav.
I didn't even hear that. I love that. If you want to bring me the casserole dish, I always, when anyone's asking who is like didn't grow up religious or like, with classic Jewish foods and, kugel, what's kugel? I'm like, it's basically just a casserole. Anything you could throw in a casserole dish, you could call it a kugel. So, it's whether it's noodle, spinach, broccoli, vegetable, potato. We said like a dairy, a cheese version of that. It's like eggs and something else and throw it in a casserole dish and then you can call it a kugel. So here we have here. But isn't it beautiful? And I don't know if you can smell everything here. I just even feel like the tartness of the yogurt. I'm sorry, my senses are on high alert always.
It's true. It's both the chalav of the yogurt and also I love how you balance the sweet fruits with the zeytin.
Yes.
So wonderful.
Yes, put that here. So here I'm just going to flatten this out. This will bake together so nicely, and then you serve it in squares, or you could scoop it right from a beautiful casserole dish, just like this. And we're going to top it texture. A lot of when you're cooking, you want flavor, right? We spoke about building flavor, but texture also is very, very important. When all the senses are engaged, what you smell, you taste, and the texture in the mouth, it just makes for a heightened experience from a culinary perspective. So we took this puffed wheat right here.
More chita.
Yeah, you might know it as honey smacks in Chutz La'aretz, but here it's just
Shalva.
Yeah, they get correct.
It's a beautiful name, right? The serenity that comes with enjoying the Perot of Eretz Yisrael.
And I love that crunchy topping. If you've ever seen one of these kugels where you do like sort of a crumb or a streusel topping. So this is the Tu BiShvat riff on that, of having that little bit of a crunchy topping. And you had to mix nothing together. This all came right out of the bag just like this. At one point, my husband went shopping for me. He's like, puff wheat, I don't know if they have puff wheat. I go, of course they do. He said, well, can't you just make it? And I was like, I can't just make this, It's like a whole, but it's everywhere and easily and abundantly easy to find, and a really, really fun, quick, crunchy, crispy topping. And you can get the plain, or you can get like the honey, it's like,
right, the more sweetened version.
Yeah, it's just like a little bit of honey. It's just kissed with honey, let's say.
Oh, how about that they can't smell how sweet it is.
Like, I'm ready to eat it. If they didn't have the raw eggs, I would just dig in right now. So this goes in also like 350, 375, 45 minutes. You just kind of want it to set and come together. So again, easily nice squares, or could be scooped.
Beautiful.
This is really like, if we weren't having so much fun and talking, like you could really put this 7 species Shabbat, Tu BiShvat meal together in like not too long, a few minutes.
Okay. I'm going to try this at home.
Good, get this one. Okay, and then are you ready for the salad?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. So Jamie, now we're ready for
the salad, the 7 species Shivat Haminim salad.
So now we really get to see each one individually and can talk about them as we gradually put them together. So quick chazara, quick review for if we were eating all these individually before we put it together. And the truth is that everyone eating a salad can pick and choose what they want. Correct. So they do have to think and have the kavanah for what they're going to be eating.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I came across a very nice way to remember this in English this year. And we believe, right, the wheat, the barley, God will fix the pandemic.
Amen.
Ken yehi ratzon, right? So we have the we believe, the grapes, God will fix the figs, again, pandemic, again, the pomegranates. But really, if you think about it, in the beautiful way that these different fruit, as we look at them, you can also see that it goes based on the size and the number of the seeds, right? Beginning with the chita, sa'ura, gefen, te'ina, but really it's what's closest to the word aretz. So we have zeit shemen udvash, we begin with the olive, and then the date, and then we have more of the seeds and the grapes, followed by the figs, followed by the pomegranate.
Excellent, except I still feel like I need it written down.
Okay, we'll do that after.
Okay, so we're going to make the dressing first, because that's a great way to start. So here we have our delicious olive oil. And to that, we're going to add red wine vinegar. So we have a wine element.
So we're now in our spring already. We're building our season.
Right, from the white wine to the red wine. A little bit of honey. For those who do say it's bees honey, here we have.
Eretz zeit shemen udvash.
But you absolutely could use Ceylon and date honey here as well. We're looking for a little bit of something sweet and sticky in there. Now this has nothing to do with Tu BiShvat, but it's really good. A little bit of mustard, like a Dijon mustard.
The colors, the brightness, and it comes from a seed. And that brings us to another theme of Tu BiShvat, which is Adam Eitz Hasadeh, that we see in Sefer Dvarim as well. We're not allowed to cut down fruit trees because man is like a fruit tree. We begin like the seed, and we blossom and we grow. So Tu BiShvat really is a wonderful time also for a cheshbon hanefesh for each and every one of us. And while we're stirring and cooking, to undergo a little bit of introspection.
I always, when I make my challah, that's a wonderful time to do that. But to do some of that, it's translated as a counting of the soul, but introspection, it's like such a meditative time when you're cooking. If your kids aren't crying and screaming and pulling you in 100 directions, it can be absolutely very relaxing and wonderful moments for that. So, gam v'gam, as they say both. This is an excellent vinaigrette. Okay, it smells delicious. It is amazing. You can use it for this salad or any single time of year. Okay, so we'll just move this off so people can see what we're doing now. What we're going to start to do, actually, I'm just going to prepare all of my elements first. Here, I want to cut these beautiful fresh figs. We used a lot of dry figs. If you can get your hands on some fabulous fresh figs, there's nothing like it. Their taste and their beauty. Everything about them. So we're going to go ahead and just cut them. You do have to check them just so that you know. As beautiful as they are, I guess everyone thinks they're as beautiful and delicious. They could be infested. So you want to always check, take a look for any webbing. I cut them horizontally and then vertically. And just give a nice look before, you want to go ahead and before you eat them. But
look at the color, the reds and the hues of the green. Beautiful.
Everything. It's like from green to red, with everything in between, this lime green, this peach, this pink, and then this vibrant red at the core. I really I almost don't know anything much more beautiful than that, although I'm obsessed with the Rimonim also.
Yes, which is why the Kabbalists we were talking about actually see the 7 species as a means of understanding the 7 spirot.
Wow.
The spheres, the celestial spheres between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Wow.
So we can also look at them that way.
Okay, I didn't have that intention when I'm cooking or eating or doing the Tu BiShvat Seder. That's really, really beautiful. Is there any other insight on that to be thinking about, or?
So each one of them, whether it's the Achita Sa'ura, the Yesod, thinking about our foundations. You were talking about the beauty, the Tiferet. And they certainly relate both on an individual level, but also on a national level, to be able to internalize these messages.
I'm just slicing our beautiful grapes. They are so crisp and so crunchy. We do have the best fruit, and And
you're talking about the aesthetic and the flavor value, and I must say I'm also thinking about the nutritional value.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have our antioxidants over here. We have our vitamin C's and B's, and think of the brachot.
I forgot you love health.
I was going to say, this is perfect. A way to enrich our body and our soul simultaneously.
And we are using the fruits of the land of Israel, the 7 species for Tu BiShvat. But honestly, you could really incorporate almost anything here. So your favorite fruits. So depending on the season, using barley, or what I also love here, I use barley because it's Tu BiShvat, but an Israeli pearl couscous or even a regular couscous could be fantastic as the base for the salad any time of year. So if you are not used to eating a barley, salad, then definitely use any of those grains. You like quinoa would be fantastic, and use whatever fruits are in season. This vinaigrette will complement anything and everything. I really promise you that. And so what I want to do first, but I want to show you how I prepare. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly dress the barley. Okay, lightly. You can always add, but once it's overdressed, you can't take away. Okay, so let's give it one more. It's emulsified beautifully. Just let's call it half of the dressing. Okay, I'm going to save the other half for on top. Good. I like that. Now, I'm just going to give it a nice, just been sitting a little bit, so just make sure it gets nice and incorporated here. And I'm going to do the salad. Do you ever do a salad on a flat plate?
So usually I do not, so I would love to see. how you arrange this.
It's such an elegant presentation. You could do this with any salad whatsoever. It's one of my favorite ways to do colorful coleslaw on a flat plate. I've done Caesar salad on a flat plate. It's fun and beautiful, and you see it so much nice. I think it's like a nicer, more elegant presentation.
Yes, you're increasing the surface area.
Yes,
you
right.
get a little
Correct,
sense of Admat Eretz Yisrael.
Yes. Oh, that's what I was thinking.
You know what? As you were cutting the figs, Jamie, I was even reminded of when I first came to Eretz Yisrael for the year my Shana Ba'aretz, and I was learning about the Sheva Minim. And for the first time, I would go to a restaurant and order a salad. And what would they put in the salad? They put figs, pomegranates. I said, where am I? I thought a salad is vegetables.
Totally.
And then you realize that this is a salad in Eretz Yisrael. It reminds you of, as we began, with the fruit and the trees of Eretz Yisrael that are dependent on the rain. And I told myself that one day, Be'ezrat Hashem, when I build my house in Eretz Yisrael, I want to plant the Sheva Minim in our backyard. So we did that.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, chitasa ura we had by default. It actually became a kilayim issue. It started growing near our grave, so we had to take out the wheat and the barley. But we have our geffen, we have our vine of grapes, we have our te'ina tree, which is really beautiful and abundant. And Chazal say that the te'ina in particular has a special beauty to it because the harvesting continues. They're always growing on the tree at different stages. So we have our rimon tree and our zayit. We actually live on Rechov HaZayit. So we have two olive trees. And the tamar, we live in the mountains of Gush Etzion. So you can't really, the tamar, as we know, is indigenous to the deserted areas.
Yes, right. When you go down south to like the Dead Sea, and it's just like forever, the tamar trees. I love it.
Ein Gedi, Yericho, that's probably where these dates are from. And so we don't have a tamar tree, but we have a symbolic dekel, which is very nice.
Okay, beautiful.
Look at this,
So
the
now
combination
the
of
tamarine,
everything.
we're going to put it, they are so sticky. You really have to use your hands. You have gloves, whatever you're comfortable with, to really separate them to make sure they get all incorporated nicely in the salad. And we're just going to go ahead and just kind of decorate on top here.
Beautiful. It's bringing all the different topographies of Eretz Yisrael together. Isn't that interesting? The deserted areas, the fields, the fertile areas, the vine, which is the arid area.
So we're going to go here now in with the vine.
Beautiful.
Okay. And it's like a purposeful scatter, you know? Like, don't think too hard about it, but give some thought to getting it all around. Now we're going to go in with these are my bursting jewels. I feel like they just accent everything so beautifully. I love it.
Yeah, you sprinkle it with so much ease. And look at this.
Like I'm looking at you and I'm sprinkling. No, I am paying attention. Like I said, it's a purposeful sprinkle. So that's there. Okay. Now we're going to put these. I'm going to be a little bit more just kind of placing them. Is that like, I feel like it's stunning, right?
Stunning, stunning.
I love you. It's like wish it was Tu BiShvat every day.
Yes. Do you actually make it to the end of the salad, or everyone starts munching?
By the way, I tasted 100 things before you came. I just was making sure the grapes were okay. We call that quality control. I was making sure that the rimonim were fresh and crunchy. So, and I'm happy to report everything is as you would hope and dream.
Excellent.
Okay, I like that. Sometimes you don't have to overkill. If you have these extras, this is for the cook's prize. Now, remember we spoke about that texture. So here we have our barley nuggets, grape nuts, they're also known as. But barley and wheat nuggets, so that's going to give you a little bit of crunch. And then...
It really looks like a little field.
It does, it does. Look at that, it does. And then we have that little bit of green. I always say, don't underestimate the power of a little bit of green.
That's our hadama. We needed our last breath over here.
A little bit sticking to my gloves, but we're good. And then remember, we reserved some of the dressing. Yes. So here we are going to do the grand finale, which is simply, this is really just for flavor, just to have a little bit of that drizzle, okay, on top. So the barley or whatever grain, obviously with Tu BiShvat we're using barley, but I spoke about quinoa, couscous, pro couscous, regular couscous. That would be great at the bottom. So you dress that first with half the dressing and then you finish on top.
So now we know what order we're going to start nibbling and saying our brachot and our bracha rishona, our bracha achrona, thanking Hashem for literally the ikar, the chitas ora. So even though we ate, or we will eat, Be'ezrat Hashem, a lot of the fruit, we're still going to say also, a brachat ala mechya v'ala kakala, thanking Hashem, not just for the food, but ala haaretz.
Yes.
When we look at all these fruits and we look at the Sheva Minim, we remember our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the land and our dependency on the rain. And we remember how just like the man in the desert was this miraculous food from heaven, Hashem tells us when you come to Eretz Yisrael, the food is no less miraculous. Even the food that you're going to get from the ground is still lechem min hashamayim.
It really is. I want to just take all this off so people can, I'm very into appreciating the beauty, right? We have to clean the work surface. Let's get everyone to see. And you really said it's really min hashamayim. I feel like nobody could have created fruits like this, a platter like this, a salad like this, but Hashem, right? And the land of Israel. I mean, we're here in the middle of the winter, right? Some people are freezing wherever you are. I know my mother is freezing in Philadelphia. And look at us. And each one, it's not just that it's so beautiful, but it's so delicious. Very often when it comes to food, and if you've ever seen fancy cakes, right? They look good. The better things look, almost the worse they taste. But when it comes to the fruit and the foods of Israel, they taste as good as they look. Right. And this took nothing at all. You just have to boil up the barley before. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So 1 cup of barley, 3 cups of water, and you're good to go. And this is
the manifestation of the brachot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Eretz Yisrael. You know what? It even looks like a birthday cake.
It does. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to the
all
trees.
All the trees of Eretz Yisrael. And Tu BiShvat Sameach, Jamie. On behalf of World Mizrachi, thank you again for inviting us to be able to celebrate together, to be able to appreciate
I can't get enough of it. It's so much fun with you, and you've brought so much more meaning to my cooking, and I've gained so much from this, so you must come back.
Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, but not before everyone at home tries this and brings a little bit of the beauty of Eretz Yisrael, the taste, the smells of Eretz Yisrael. And Be'ezrat Hashem, may we be zoche for continued brachot this year, a bracha of blossoming, a bracha where we can see Einei Hashem Elokecha ba, Hashem's eyes truly blessing us throughout the year, manifest through the fruit.
Amen. Amen. Okay, off camera, we shall dig in. Till next time.
Here we go, bracha time.
It's Hashem, Einei Hashem.